You know, you really should quit gambling. I feel so much better now that I did, John says to his friends over drinks one night. His friend looks up from the phone, eyebrow raised, saying, Bro, you've checked your phone 6 times now since we sat down. What is it now, crypto or prediction markets? John sputtered and tried to say it wasn't gambling, but he knew the hook was the same. He got off sports betting and other gambling apps and thought he'd cleaned up his act by moving to investments. If this situation sounds familiar, stay tuned. I'm Phil Shea, an addictions counselor who specializes in gambling and video game addiction. Buddhism has a concept called the near enemy. The far enemy is the obvious and easily avoided obstacle, the clear opposite of the thing you want. The near enemy, however, is far more insidious. It is something that closely resembles the target, but actually keeps you from reaching it. The easiest example is desiring love, but instead getting stuck on infatuation, lust, or codependence, blocking true connection. Now, back to John. He used to spend his waking life gambling, dreaming about winning it big and riding in to save the day. It was his go-to stress relief, his excitement, which started as a once-in-a-while treat, but eventually grew to become a daily, then hourly habit. After his girlfriend threatened to leave and his parents refused to bail him out again, he set up Gamban and self-excluded from his usual haunts. Trying to be responsible, he set up some crypto wallet and started researching how to invest. This is what clean-cut, white-collar people do, after all, and that's what he was aspiring to be. Then the market surged and dropped substantially in one day and gave him a familiar rush. A friend told him about prediction markets, and John was hesitant at first. Isn't that just betting on real-world events? Basically broader sports betting? He resisted. No way, man, his friend reassured. It's options markets, like shorting a stock. If it was gambling, it wouldn't be legal in every state. Believing he'd just give it a try and back off if it was too much like gambling, John dipped his toe by buying shares, also known as event contracts. For people like John who have given up gambling, they've taken all the proper precautions, and yet, sneaking under the radar, they find themselves using what are ostensibly more responsible means of using their money. Out to dinner with his parents, they dropped a tentative question. How's it going with the gambling? Are you okay for money? They asked. Oh, I'm done with all that, he said, his girlfriend silent, focusing on her plate. I've stopped that entirely. Now I'm being responsible, investing everything. That's great, his dad says, patting him on the back with a chuckle. And with that, the tension resolves, and his parents start peppering him with questions about his thoughts on the markets and what strategies he's employing. In the past, the conversation might have devolved into silence and a quick call for the bill after some harsh words were exchanged. But this time, John felt accepted and responsible. Respected, even. Ask John what he's doing, and he'll tell you he's investing his money. He'll talk about how the markets are up or how his investments are doing, and you'll know when he's down because he'll have a storm cloud over him, though he'll avoid saying why. And no, John's no dummy. He's done his research, and his approach is as sophisticated as a casual trader can be. But that's just the thing. His relationship to trading isn't typical. Most people who trade aren't watching the markets every hour or making multiple trades a day. John is. His girlfriend wasn't familiar with these markets and didn't even need convincing when he first said he's getting into investing. She just thought it sounded like a responsible way of getting his money to work for him. But then the same conversations began to take place. It's like you're not even here with me, and are you all right? You're taking a long time in the bathroom. I'm fine, John would say, feeling his stress and defensiveness rise irresistibly. The situation was tense, and John's presence in the house was more of a brooding darkness, a far cry from the light, jovial guy he was when they first started dating. And again, John wasn't blind to the decline. He could see that they were starting to drift, but he kept telling himself how it was only a matter of time before things would be all right. He'd been down this far before and came back, but he could do it again. He started betting bigger. His accounts continued jigsawing downward. The pressure came to a boiling point. Then he got exactly what he was waiting for. He won big, miraculously so, enough to pay off all of his debts and even have a little to play with afterward. Suddenly, he was back to his usual self. But this time, despite John being excited and happy, his relationship continued to suffer. His girlfriend didn't trust this sudden change for the better. It had happened too many times before, and then it clicked. You're gambling again, she said late one night. I'm not, John said. You can check. Gamban is still installed everywhere, and I'm still on the self-exclusion lists. John thought he had her there. He was in the clear. He kept his word to avoid gambling, the promise he'd made when she threatened to end things. I don't need to check those. I believe you haven't broken your promise, she said, tension clear in her voice. But you're acting the same as before. You're following the letter of your promise, but not the spirit. She paused. Then the bottom fell out for John when she said, I don't think I can do this. Not again. John's life had become a contrast between mundane, plodding stability and the excitement of the markets. His girlfriend felt like an anchor, keeping him from going too far, and he really wanted to make it work. I'll stop, he said, turning to look at her. Right now, just say the word. Her raised eyebrow was all she needed to convey her feelings. All right, I'll stop right now. Then his phone buzzed. It must have been one of his event contracts resolving. He hesitated. He could tell she was watching him closely. He grabbed his phone and saw that he was right. But the contract had cut the wrong way, and now he was in the red again. Not as bad as before, not by any measure, but enough that it would hurt. What should he do? Should he try and negotiate with her, saying he'd quit once he got ahead? Or should he accept the loss and delete all the apps? The thing I want you to sit with is this. John kept his promise. He didn't gamble. And yet he still ended up in the same place, having the same conversations, feeling the same dread when his phone buzzed. The same shame and fear of being exposed. Because it was never about gambling. It's the mentality. The chasing, the checking, the needing the next thing to resolve before you can breathe. That's what followed him. And if you're honest with yourself, you might notice it's following you too. You check your balance and your stomach drops. How is it still so low? It's almost as if you haven't been doing anything at all, yet you've been cutting back on almost everything that makes life worth living. Any fun, any excess, you've cut it all away, trimming the fat until you've started cutting into muscle and bone. Still, the stark reality on display before you is a depressing one. You've mostly been covering just the interest and hardly any of the principal. If you've found yourself in this scenario, you're definitely not the only one, and it comes along with a series of interesting, troublesome quirks of the brain. First, there's research that talks about how feeling poor, even if you're objectively not, causes people's rational thinking skills to decline. If you are or just feel poor, then your brain will start to feel under threat, spending a number of background processes working to find a way forward out of this hole to a better place. That doesn't come for free. No, instead it puts you into survival mode where your ability to think long term takes a major hit. And you could even make the case that this is a form of rationality, as why would you think about long-term goals when you're not even sure if you're going to make rent? Hard to plan when you have no idea what context you'll be in a few weeks down the line, isn't it? On top of that, consider some of the most cited research by famed psychologists Kahneman and Tversky. They found that people greatly overweigh tiny probabilities. For a long time, economists and psychologists thought people were rational. In some areas we can be, for sure. But when it comes to incredibly unlikely events, we aren't. What they found was, especially when the stakes feel existential, people treat very small chances as bigger than they actually are. A 1% chance feels more like a 5 or 10% chance. And critically, there's a huge psychological gap between 0 and any chance, even a tiny one. A 1 in 100,000 shot doesn't feel like nothing. It feels like a door, and as long as the door exists, your brain wants to walk through it. On a related note, researchers at Carnegie Mellon ran an experiment where they made low-income participants feel either relatively poor or relatively well off, but had the same actual income, just primed to feel one way or the other. The poor-feeling group bought nearly twice as many lottery tickets, despite their material reality remaining unchanged. Purely just perception. And the broader pattern lines up. Lottery sales tend to hold steady or even rise during recessions, even as people pull back on almost everything else. This is what was happening inside John's head. He was doing everything he thought was right. Day trading, crypto, prediction markets, telling himself he was being responsible, all while falling into the same trap that gambling lured him into. And gambling itself, at least, carries the label of being gambling, and with that comes some friction, some self-awareness about the negative effects of the particular trade that they're offering, and some appropriate wariness. But now, with these new forms of gambling, including loot boxes and RNG and video games, and the industry's most recent move of being called gaming, these same groups are able to skirt the law and present themselves as being something more respectable and upstanding. Make no mistake, these regulatory gaps aren't incidental or simple oversights. And despite what people think, it's not most dangerous when you're deep in the hole. No, that's when you're well aware of your situation and feel like you probably need to reconsider what you're doing. What's more dangerous is when you're close to breaking even, as it feels like it's solvable. It's something that you can gamble your way out of. Think about it. Being down 500 feels worse than going from 5,000 down to 5,500 down. Same $500 loss, completely different emotional weight. And your brain doesn't measure losses in sheer dollars and cents, it measures them by how close you are to even. When you're far from zero, the numbers start to feel unreal, small even. But when you're close to zeroing out, the pull to claw back that last bit is enormous. It feels within reach and solvable. Just one more session away. That's the trap. Researchers at Cambridge scanned the brains of regular gamblers and found that the worse someone's gambling problem was, the bigger the dopamine hit they got from almost winning. Not from winning, from almost winning. Actual wins lit up everyone's brain about the same though. But the closer to a real gambling problem you get, the more your reward system starts treating losses in winning clothing as if it were a real thing. Your brain literally stops being able to tell the difference, at least in terms of chemical rewards. Now, this part is my own read, not something the research has tested directly yet. But day trading, prediction markets, crypto, every product with that kind of baked-in volatility looks an awful lot like a near-miss generator running at industrial scale. Every tick towards break-even, every reversal away from it, has your brain register as almost, and we already know what almost does. My thinking is that the research will catch up within the next decade. Time will tell, but there's a reason this is so often the safe haven for people who've given up explicit gambling. Now, none of this is meant to make you feel like the deck is so stacked that there's no point in trying. Just like I wouldn't end a session by saying, here's everything that's stacked against you, see you next week. I'm clearly not going to do that here. No, it's important to realize how our brains and bodies work, because once you see a trap and understand how it works, you can learn to build systems that avoid these pitfalls. That's all. Next, I'll be discussing some strategies to shield yourself from the problems I've outlined above. John's chest is tight. The black screen on his phone stares at him, taunting him. He's trying to focus on the TV, but the show's just not hooking him. Hardly anything seems to scratch the itch the way placing a bet, win or lose, seems to. He promised himself, and those he cares about, that he wasn't going to gamble anymore. But he's been holding off for so long that he's so close to saying fuck it. The fuck it moment is a real risk when it comes to dealing with addiction. You've been working so hard, you're committed to changing, but you don't know what sort of tools or practices you should try to get and stay on the straight and narrow. The point I'll always drill home, it's not about willpower, it's about systems. Willpower fails when you most need it, so it's at its best when it's used to make an environment where you avoid being tempted in the first place. You're packing a parachute now so that when you are plummeting dangerously away from your goals, you can pull the ripcord and return safely, or, better yet, avoid falling out of the plane in the first place. The first layer is the money firewall. For this, you'll want to set up 3 separate bank accounts at your bank. The first is for bills, which is as automated as you can make it. Next is your living expenses, giving yourself a weekly allowance that is auto-transferred into it. Finally, and ideally, thinking about the long term, you want to have an investment account that automatically siphons off a set amount of money into the most boring index funds you can find. For this one, you want to be as hands-off as possible and no real-time feedback. It's a background process that gets tucked away, out of sight, out of mind. It simply disappears. The key rule is, if you're making financial decisions in real time with real-time feedback, you're one bad night away from gambling, or its dark twin, day trading. If it helps, consider a robo-advisor or human advisor so you don't even get a login, instead opting for a quarterly statement and nothing else. The second layer is the device firewall. Your phone should be viewed as the equivalent to the casino floor, and it's best to treat it that way. You've probably already done these things, but I'll cover the bases just to be clear. Delete all real-time financial apps, including trading platforms, crypto exchanges, prediction markets, and possibly even your banking app if looking at your balance is a trigger. Next, you're going to want to install Gamban, which at this point blocks all gambling-related sites and apps, and even blocks some crypto exchanges. I don't think they've gotten around to blocking the prediction market websites yet, but they're likely coming any day now. If you've gotten all that tucked away, consider setting time limits for other addictive apps that can end up replacing one addiction with another. TikTok and other social media apps would be examples. There are apps such as Freedom that can block those kinds of apps, with various ways you can customize and tweak it. If your situation, for whatever reason, requires you to manually manage finances, then consider having a second device that has access, but which is hard for you to get your hands on. You can leave it in your car, at your friend or sibling's place, or even get one of those time-locked containers. The main point is to add as much friction between you and what you know you'll be tempted to use to get a fix. The main purpose is to make it so annoying to have to get to that the impulse passes before you're able to get your hands on it. The third layer I'll talk about today is what I'm delicately calling the fuck it protocol. The previous two protocols were about adding friction and keeping things out of sight, out of mind. But this one is about the low moments, where you're bored and jonesing. Your tank is running on empty, and you think, what could it hurt? And you catch yourself thinking Bilbo thoughts of, after all, why shouldn't I? So here are some tips. First, set a 10-minute timer. Buying your higher brain functions some time to kick back online, moving away from the limbic system. Remember, behavioral addictions are primarily emotion-based conditions, so it helps if you do something physical to shake yourself into a new state. There's a general psychological rule worth knowing. Emotions follow motion. If you're stuck in a feeling and you recognize it, get up and move. Dance, do push-ups, walk to another room. The specific activity matters less than the disruption. You're forcing your body to process a different input and your emotions will follow. If you've done all that and it's still not working, contact somebody. Even just one person. Even just a text, because it's less about having a deep conversation and more about breaking the isolation. Because the urge to gamble is loudest when it's your only companion in the wee hours. And if you're living with somebody and you're close to cracking, tell them. I know that feels impossible, but here's something worth remembering. Whatever you run from gets bigger and scarier. Saying it out loud shrinks it back down. The final part of this protocol is writing down or telling someone what the urge is. Pinpoint it in words as much as you can, such as, I'm telling myself that one bet could fix it. Or, I'm telling myself that prediction markets aren't really gambling. Or, I'm telling myself I deserve a break. Most of the time, simply stating it plainly like that can allow you to have enough emotional distance to think about it rationally and distance yourself from the urge. So, those are the three firewalls: money, device, and the fuck it protocol. Set them up when you're calm, and they'll hold when you're not. But here's the thing I haven't addressed yet, and it might be the most important piece. You can build every firewall I've just described and still end up back at square one. Why might that be? It's because some people want it so bad they can't help but race towards it as if it's in front of them. That's excitement and motivation. But what about down the line when the bloom is off the rose and your life is shades of gray? That's a different problem entirely, and it's what I'm going to dig into next. It's Saturday afternoon and you're sitting in a quiet apartment you've barely left all week. The money you save by staying in is sitting in your account. It must be getting pretty big, you think to yourself. You open your banking app only to find that it's barely more than the last month. You close the app, and the silence somehow feels louder than before. At first blush, discipline and deprivation can look identical until one of them breaks you. So far, I've talked about the patterns that keep people stuck, why your brain falls for them, and the systems you can build to protect yourself. But none of that matters if the pace you've set is going to break you before it saves you. Here's a pattern I've noticed. You've been good, following the rules you agreed to or set for yourself. You're staying in and cooking at home. Turning down invitations because you can't justify any extra spending. You're watching every dollar, every transaction, every category in your banking app. In short, you're doing the work. Then you check your balance expecting some kind of relief, and you've barely even moved the needle. Months of going without, and somehow you're still drowning in interest payments. The math just keeps pulling you down like sandbags on a hot air balloon. That's the moment a tempting thought sneaks in the back door. Fuck it. I deserve a break. Hell, I could even come out way ahead if I win big. Someone has to win, why shouldn't it be me? After all, you can't win if you're not playing. And that thought didn't strike out of the wild blue. No, it came from the white knuckling that was actually deprivation wearing discipline's clothing. Think of a finger trap. The harder you pull, the tighter it grips. The instinct is to fight harder, and that's exactly what traps you. The only way out is to calm down, ease up, and calmly find the solution. So, what's the difference between discipline and deprivation? Well, discipline is sustainable. It's a pace you can hold for years. Deprivation, however, has a shelf life which will run out. And when it does, you'll overshoot your baseline and veer hard into overcorrection. The harder you've been straining, the more forceful the snapback. And the fuck it moment doesn't come from a failure of willpower. It's a predictable end of a strategy that was never going to last. As Roy Baumeister put it in his book, Willpower, a restrictive diet takes huge amounts of sustained willpower to follow, but it takes even more willpower to not diet when you don't like what you see in the mirror. This is true for anything that takes long, concerted effort, including getting clean or getting out of debt. If that landed for you, I get it. I work with men who are stuck in exactly this cycle. There's a link below for a free strategy call. No pressure, just a conversation about where you're at and what makes sense for you. The system is rigged, and we're all being pulled downward in this war between the have-nots and the have-yachts. I also think it's pretty clear who's winning. But if you are winning in the system, sometimes the lifestyle people expect you to live and the lifestyle your profession should be able to afford ends up running you so deep into debt that you're also on the same treadmill. So let's face it, even if you're making good money, it somehow finds a way of slipping through your fingers. Too much month at the end of your money, as they say. So when you tighten your belts to climb your way back up, you're fighting more than just your spending habits. You're fighting an entire economic context that's designed to keep you reaching for the next thing. That's why pure austerity rarely works as a long-term strategy. You're attempting to outlast a system that has more endurance than any one person can. Here's the cold, hard truth about most difficult things in life. They are not sprints, they're marathons. If you want to reach your goal, you must pick a pace that is something you can do indefinitely. As one person put it, you need to enter Groundhog Day mode, where you do the same thing most days to keep moving the needle forward. That does not mean every day is identical. It means the foundation holds even when the details change. So the question isn't, how hard can I cut? The question is, what's the most I can sustain? Those are completely different questions, and they lead to completely different lives. One leads to a likely relapse you didn't see coming, and the other ends with you ending up where you wanted to go. The point is this: marathons are not run alone. Anyone who's tried to grind their way out of a financial hole on pure willpower knows how that story ends, usually with a fuck it moment that sets them even further back than where they started. The people who actually make it through don't do it through superhuman discipline. They do it by building a life that doesn't require superhuman discipline to maintain. When you're heading toward a goal 100 miles away, sprinting at top speed will not get you there faster than moving at a steady, maintainable pace. The West African proverb put it well: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You can understand the trap, you can build every system I've described, and if you're white-knuckling a pace that's unsustainable, it will all fall apart. The systems you build are designed to protect you in the moment, but the pace will keep you going for years. When you're ready, click the link below to explore your options. We can do this together, at your pace, and we can start now. And as always, I'm Phil Shea, addictions counselor. Have a great day.